I had transferred $68,000 to my family over 4 years, but they just snickered and ridiculed me. I kept quiet and began orchestrating their financial awakening. They presented me with a coffee mug that read, "Don't ask questions. Just transfer and grin." I smiled, and within 24 hours, their phones were buzzing nonstop. Not with money, but with consequences. They were calling in desperation. It started that Thanksgiving evening when my sister Vanessa raised her champagne flute and said, "Come on, it's hilarious," as the holiday centerpiece cast gentle shadows across her smirking face. I sat in silence, clutching the mug she had just given me. Don't ask questions. Just transfer and grin. Everyone chuckled. Dad joined in the laughter from his end of the table. Vanessa made a mock toast with her glass. She continued with, "To our benefactor," and then, as if delivering the punchline she'd been saving all night, Mom added, "You're not our son, you're our personal ATM." More than laughter, those words hung heavy in the air. I had recently wired $15,000 to cover Mom's unexpected dental surgery, Vanessa's minor car accident that somehow required an entire new front end, and their overdue property taxes. After cutting short my business trip to handle their crisis, I hadn't even finished unpacking. And now this. "Vanessa," I said, gripping the mug tightly. "Where did you even find this?" She grinned and replied, "Oh, I had it custom made. Thought it was fitting. You're always so worried about why you're the one helping everyone. We just thought." I glanced first at my mother, then at my father. Mom smiled. "Don't be so sensitive, Marcus. You've always been the generous one." Dad never even looked up from his phone. "It's just a joke. Lighten up." "Right. A joke. Just like they joked last Christmas, but since I practically manage the household finances, I should claim them as dependents on my taxes." Or how, when I got promoted at work, they joked about upgrading their benefactor. I surveyed the table. Vanessa was wearing her expensive cream-colored dress, which I purchased after she claimed she couldn't afford proper holiday attire. Her boyfriend Greg was stuffing his face as if at a complimentary buffet, which it essentially was. Mom was smirking as if she hadn't just used guilt and tears to convince me to pay off her credit card bill. And Dad, mentally absent as usual, unless someone needed funding, fixing, or a signature on something. Mom continued, "Isn't this lovely? A real family holiday." It wasn't lovely. It wasn't real at all. It was a performance. And the entire production was bankrolled by me. I gave them the smile they requested, and something permanent and irreversible shattered within me at that exact moment. It hadn't always been this way. Or perhaps it had, and I was simply too preoccupied with trying to be helpful to notice the rot taking hold. I was raised believing that love was transactional, that being reliable meant being loved, that if I just tried hard enough, gave enough, solved enough problems, they would eventually look at me the way they looked at Vanessa. But I was wrong. In reality, they had adored Vanessa from the beginning. Their miracle, their pride, their proof that they had done something right. I was a resource, a contingency plan, a mobile safety net with a pulse. It started gradually. It always does. I covered Vanessa's rent for 3 months after her first business venture collapsed. I paid for Mom's dental work twice when it became urgent. Guess who kept the utilities running at home when Dad's buddy couldn't repay a loan? Me. Always me. And they made me feel like I was making amends each time I stepped up, as if I owed them. "You know, we sacrificed a lot to raise you," Mom would say if I hesitated to send money. Dad once remarked, "We didn't raise you to be successful so you could hoard it all." Vanessa had her version, too. "It's not like we're strangers. We're family. You know I'd help you if the roles were reversed." But they never were, because I made sure they weren't, because I sacrificed my life to be the one who was never in debt, trouble, or need. 6 months ago, the first significant crack appeared. Vanessa called me crying about Greg's business. "It's collapsing," she sobbed. "If we don't cover the next equipment payment, he'll lose everything. Please." I'd never ask unless we were desperate. That evening, I transferred $4,200. A week later, I spotted her in an Instagram post at an upscale vineyard, laughing with a wine glass in hand, and Greg flashing a new Omega watch beside her. "Weekend escape," read the caption. "Much needed." I said nothing. I thought maybe it was sponsored. Maybe it was an old photo. Maybe she needed the break. But the pictures kept appearing. Designer shoes, fancy brunches, a new iPhone, and then the Thanksgiving dinner, with the mug, the mockery, the joke about their benefactor. After that night, I began reviewing my accounts. I went back 4 years. $68,450. That's what I had given them. Given, not loaned. in gifts, bailouts, transfers, payments, and emergency coverage. When I saw the total, my hand trembled. I called my bank. 3 joint cards frozen. I updated all my online passwords, created a new savings account. I transferred my remaining funds there. That evening, I received a text from Mom. "Hey, sweetie, can you send $500? I forgot to pay the association fees, and they're threatening a fine." Just until Friday. I didn't respond. "Vanessa, 10 minutes later, Mom says you're upset. Is this about the mug? Come on, don't be weird. It's just a joke." Nothing changed. Then Mom at midnight. "We didn't mean anything by it. You know we appreciate you. Don't make this into something." I stared at the screen. Appreciate me? Like when they thanked me for driving 4 hours in a blizzard to pick up Dad from the hospital because Vanessa had concert tickets. Like when they didn't include me in the family trip to Hawaii because you wouldn't want to spend money on something frivolous, right? No, this wasn't appreciation. It was addiction. They were addicted to the version of me that paid silently and asked for nothing in return. Withdrawal is harsh. Fine. Vanessa arrived at my apartment early the next morning. She strode in like she owned the place the moment I opened the door. "Seriously?" she asked bluntly. "You're ignoring us now?" I leaned against the counter, my back to her. "You mean like how you ignored my last promotion, my last birthday, and every time I said I was overwhelmed?" She laughed. "You're making a scene over a joke mug." "No," I replied. "I'm making a scene over $68,000 and zero respect." That silenced her. She blinked. "What are you talking about?" "I've tracked every dollar I've sent in the last 4 years," I answered. "Every emergency, every loan you never repaid, every phone call that ended with me feeling like I owed you something." Vanessa crossed her arms defensively. "We're family. You're supposed to help." "No," I said. "I did help. I helped you stay comfortable while you called me uptight. I helped Mom pay off her cards while she called me paranoid. I helped Dad with his projects while he told people I was cold." She rolled her eyes. "This is so dramatic." "What? You're cutting us off now? Going to punish us?" I smiled. "No," I said quietly. I stopped asking questions. And for once, I'm smiling while saying no. I couldn't wipe that smile off my face for the rest of the day. Word evidently spread quickly because the following evening, I received an invitation with the subject line, "Let's clear the air," for a family Zoom call. Sent by Vanessa, of course. Not being at the center of reconciliation was something she could never tolerate. The call began at 7 p.m. sharp. Vanessa exuded calculated charm with her polished appearance. Mom projected concern, all pearls and poise. Dad, as usual, was silent, disengaged. Greg hovered in the background, his shoulders partially out of frame, as if worried that guilt might be contagious. "Hey, there he is," Vanessa exclaimed. "Glad you made it. We figured it's time to move on, right?" "Of course," Mom nodded. "It's the holiday season, time to heal, family first." I smiled with effortless control. "Glad we're all on the same page." Vanessa launched into a self-congratulatory speech about how sticking together makes us stronger and tension isn't productive. It sounded like white noise to me. I unlocked my phone beneath the table. I opened my banking app. While Vanessa was mid-sentence about rebuilding trust, I navigated to the insurance dashboard. Vanessa's 2022 Honda Civic. Registered in my name. Paid monthly. Automatic payment of $219. I selected Cancel. Confirm policy cancellation. Switch tabs. DMV website. Transfer ownership from me to Vanessa. Submit. Back to banking. One final flourish. Send Vanessa $1. Message. I will never give you another dollar. Frame this. Send. Done. Her phone chimed. She frowned, blinked, and looked down. What is this? I sipped my tea. I just took care of something important. Mom narrowed her eyes. What kind of important? I smiled and leaned in. Don't worry. You'll feel it by tomorrow. Then I unmuted myself, clicked leave meeting, and watched their bewildered, frozen faces vanish like vapor. My phone pinged confirmations. Money sent. Insurance canceled. Title transferred. And a legal email had landed in Vanessa's inbox informing her that she was now the proud owner of her own mess. At exactly 9:22 the next morning, Vanessa's car was towed from her driveway. I know because she texted me the moment she noticed. "Vanessa, did you cancel my insurance?" "Vanessa, seriously?" "Vanessa, my car is gone." "Vanessa, this is insane. Call me now." I didn't respond. After an hour, my mother started calling. Then my father. Then Greg. 8 missed calls in under an hour. I knew what would come next. We need to talk. Dad texted. Sunday, 5 p.m. Just family. No excuses. Perfect. I arrived without a smile, without guilt, without regrets. I knew they would all be there, and they were. My mother, arms folded like a disappointed teacher. My father, hands on his knees, was tense. Vanessa, hair disheveled, clutching her phone like a weapon. No car keys in sight. Greg, silent, pale-faced, and fidgeting, sat off to the side. Sit, Dad muttered. I remained standing. You think this is funny? Mom shouted. What did you do to your sister? The humiliation, the danger. I raised an eyebrow. Danger? You mean, finally making her responsible for her own property? That kind of danger. Vanessa jumped in, her voice shrill with panic. You had my car towed? No, I replied. You had your car towed. I just stopped paying for it. I pulled a thick, meticulously organized color-coded folder from my bag, labeled $68,450. I placed it flat on the coffee table. That's how much I've given this family over the last 4 years. Everyone fell silent. I'm not asking anymore. I'm demanding repayment. Mom laughed, a harsh, trembling laugh. You can't be serious. Oh, I am, I replied. For the first time in my life, I'm dead serious. I opened the folder. Inside were highlighted bank statements, transfer logs, payment confirmations, and auto payment schedules. I've divided the amount between the three of you, I said. Mom, $22,100. Vanessa, $36,800. Dad, $9,550. I expect a payment plan. I'll give you 90 days. Dad stood up, his voice low and angry. You think you can treat your family like debtors? No, I replied. I think you've been treating me like an ATM with a guilt complex. I'm just doing the math. Vanessa rolled her eyes. So what? You're keeping score now? You said you were doing all this out of love, and you said you respected me. Then you gave me a mug that said, don't ask questions, just transfer and grin. I pulled out another document and slid it toward them. Remember that emergency line of credit I opened for the family 3 years ago? The one Mom called just a formality. I pointed to the signature. It's legally binding, so yes, I can sue. The room went still. Greg mumbled something under his breath. What? Vanessa snapped. He glanced at me, then back at her. His voice wavered. I told you this would happen. I told you he'd fight back. You told him. She exploded. Are you kidding me? I trusted you. You said he'd never push back, he said. That he was too soft. Vanessa's mouth quivered. Mom jumped in again. You're overreacting. You're going to destroy this family. No, I replied. I'm just closing my accounts. Then I took out the $1 transfer printout. I let it fall to the table. Transaction note. I will never give you another dollar. Frame this. I walked toward the door and added, and if you think this is betrayal, then you haven't even begun to understand what losing me actually means. As I walked away, no one spoke. For the first time, they couldn't. The silence was deafening. No one reached out when I left that living room with my folder and their jaws on the floor. No angry texts, no guilt-tripping calls. Vanessa didn't even post a passive-aggressive meme. It was bliss. My phone was quiet for the first time in years. Silent, not because they were ignoring me, but because I had earned it. I wasn't frozen out. I was free. While I'd love to say I moved on immediately, doubt did start creeping in 3 days after the showdown. I was standing in front of the almond milk section at the grocery store when it hit me. What if I was too harsh? What if I could have handled it better? Then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed. It was Vanessa. Vanessa, Mom's blood pressure is up, just so you know. She says the stress you caused is the reason. There it was like the head of a snake. Emotional manipulation, guilt, and blame, remnants of the old cycle. I didn't flinch this time, though. Me, blocked. And I meant it. The repercussions were immediate. Mom unexpectedly showed up at my apartment building 2 days later. I only knew because the front desk called up. She says she's your mother and it's an emergency. I didn't even ask about the nature of the emergency. Tell her the bank is closed for business. That was all I said. But their desperation wasn't the most surprising thing. It was the joy it brought me. I was going back to the gym, sleeping better, and cooking without tension. I was checking my financial app. I felt like my apartment had been harboring ghosts I hadn't even known about until I exorcised them. Then one evening, I received an unexpected message. Not from Vanessa. Not from my parents. From Greg. Greg, can we talk? I stared at the screen for a while. I couldn't tell if it was bait or not. I couldn't be sure if he was a puppet, but I was intrigued. Me. Talk. Not a favor. Not guilt. Just talk. Greg, I understand. I do. Just me. By myself. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop the next day in neutral territory. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. He sat down and began. I'm not here to defend Vanessa. Good, I replied. Because I'm not interested in hearing it. He nodded. I'm here because I think I'm done, too. That caught my attention. I watched her lie to your face. I watched your parents let it happen. And I kept waiting for them to show some decency, but they didn't. Now she's talking about suing you for emotional distress, he said, running a hand through his hair. I blinked. Seriously? He nodded. She's spiraling. And honestly, I don't think she believes it'll work. She just wants to punish you. I leaned back. And where do you stand? He looked me straight in the eye. I'm out. I'm done financing delusion. I've already talked to a lawyer. I'm filing for separation. That hit me harder than any punch he could have thrown. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner, he continued. I should have. You were the only one holding everything together. I was just trying to stay afloat. We sat in silence for a while. Then, just before he left, he handed me an envelope. There's a check inside. $1,000. Memo, toward what they owe you. I know it's not much, he said, but it's from me, not them. I thought you deserved to know someone saw you. I felt genuine tears sting my eyes for the first time in years. Not from pain, but from validation. That evening, I opened my family debt spreadsheet on my laptop. Next to Greg's name, I wrote, paid $1,000 with sincerity. Then I renamed the file Closure in Progress. I poured myself a glass of good wine, the kind I'd been saving for vacations that were invariably marred by forced smiles and ever-tightening budgets. This time I drank to myself, to the quiet, to the boundaries, to the freedom of having no benefactors. 3 months have passed. It's been 90 days since I left that house, dropped the folder on their coffee table, and broke my silence. I haven't seen them since. By the 4th week, the call stopped. By week 6, the texts dwindled. According to mutual friends, Vanessa has reportedly been taking time to heal, which I assume is code for finding a new sucker to bankroll her lifestyle. I didn't care. I had lost my anger. They never understood that. I wasn't furious when I said I was done. I meant finished, like a chapter closed, like an internal door bolted. I was no longer a benefactor, and now I was a man with a future free from shame, pleading, and emotionally bankrupt people sharing my last name. I relocated to a different state for a new position, less chaos, and better compensation. The new apartment was a space free from the echoes of past desperate phone calls and frantic requests for money. I started attending a kickboxing gym. I was finally fighting. Not because I wanted to hit back. I had my own schedule, my own money, my own energy. I made friends. Not the kind who remembered your birthday but handed you invoices disguised as emotional needs, but the kind who wanted nothing. I even started dating again. Someone calm. Someone kind. How are you today? Instead of, can you help just this once? For the first time in a decade, life wasn't just better. It was authentic. Then last Sunday, exactly 90 days after the confrontation, something unexpected happened. I received a deposit notification. Mom had sent me $1. The memo. I thought you might want the mug properly framed. I stared at it for a full minute. I initially thought it was bait, a joke, an attempt to lure me back through passive-aggressive tactics. But then there was another alert. Another $1 from Dad. Interest. People say I owe you more. Then, 30 minutes later, Vanessa sent me $2.50. No message, just silence. I was flabbergasted. It was absurd, symbolic, and petty. Maybe they were mocking me. Yet for the first time in weeks, I burst out laughing. I nearly spilled my coffee laughing so hard, because suddenly I realized they were finally doing something I'd asked for years. They were paying me back in the smallest, most reluctant way imaginable. But it had begun. Maybe that's what frightened them most. Not the money, not the silence. But I had finally forced them to face the consequences. But that wasn't the twist. The twist came later that evening. My phone buzzed again as I was enjoying a beer and watching the city lights from my balcony. It wasn't a text message. It was a notification from my bank. $3,000 had been deposited. Sender, Vanessa. Memo. Nothing to say. I blinked. Refreshed. Checked again. It was real. $3,000. No message. No justification. But I knew. This wasn't a sacrifice for peace. It was fear. Fear that I might actually file a lawsuit. that I wasn't bluffing, that she had lost her power. She had underestimated me. They all had. And now they were trying to access the version of me that paid the bill and stayed silent. Too little, too late, this time. I took a screenshot and saved it in the same folder where I tracked their debt. Then I renamed that folder Closure Confirmed. I donated $1,000 of that money to a local shelter for families in crisis. The next morning, I transferred the remaining funds to a new savings account labeled Phoenix Fund. Because that's what this story was, not revenge, not punishment, but rebirth. I reclaimed my time, my money, my name, and above all, my peace. And as I stood in my new apartment, bright and filled with plants and devoid of any traces of coercion, I looked around and whispered, "This is what family should feel like."